All right, it's the Three Browns podcast special here at WKYC.com. We have summoned the bat signal. I'm Dave DeNatale. That's Jay Crawford, because what a crazy Thursday in Berea, Jay. The report came out in the morning that Baker Mayfield has a partially torn labrum that he's been playing with in that left shoulder, and maybe answer some of the questions that we've had over the last couple of weeks about his performance.
We talked on Monday after the win, and I said at that time I wasn't surprised, wouldn't be surprised at all if we find out that there's some sort of injury. Yeah. I said that Baker's not using that as an excuse, but it was clear when you watched him during the game that something was off. And particularly when you look at his numbers. And I know it's not the throwing shoulder, but trust me when I tell you that a torn labrum is anything but pleasant. And it is what it is. It doesn't require surgery, so he's probably most likely going to play through it unless he gets hit there again. As to the timing of this, I know a lot of people are saying, well, why did we find out 2 weeks after the injury? Is it because he had a bad game? I don't think that's the case at all. And in fact, I'm not even really concerned with the why now and the timing of it and all of that. It is what it is. We know that it is a partially torn labrum. I think that's the story. I think the what is the story here. Baker is playing with a partially torn shoulder. Do we expect less from him? Here's the deal with football, and I think everybody would agree with this. If you are healthy enough to take the field, you lose any and all excuses for poor play.
All right.
And Baker knows that. He's a professional. He's done this for long enough to know that you're judged on your play.
That's it.
Not on your play plus your condition. If you're healthy enough to be out there, you're out there. And there's no excuses for poor play. That's what it is. Now, if the Browns come to the decision that he is hurting our football team because of the injury, then they can make the decision to go to Case Keenum. But if they don't and they put Baker out there, there's no excuse. If you're well enough to play.
It's like the movie The Program with James Caan. You're either injured or you're hurt. If you're hurt, you can play. If you're injured, you can't.
Yeah.
And apparently Baker and the Browns believe, well, he's hurt, so he can play. Wasn't it also interesting, Jay? First player that talked to the media on Thursday was Odell Beckham Jr. Odell Beckham Jr. says he has been playing with a torn labrum in his left shoulder going back to his college days at LSU. He's elected not to have surgery, doesn't want to be on the surgery table. Certainly he's been there enough. But he said, hey, look, that hurts. And he used an expletive that I won't use, but he related to what Baker's going through.
It does hurt. I've had a partially torn and a fully torn labrum in my pitching arm. There's nothing pleasant about it, and particularly when you're trying to play through it. With the injury that Baker has, and I don't know the degree of the tear, but it's a partial tear, and it doesn't require surgery. So, yes, there's things that you can do to strengthen the area around the tear that will lessen the pain. But Odell's exactly right. There's nothing pleasant about this. It does hurt, and the expletive he used was I would use that too, because it is not a pleasant thing. I'm willing to bet that there are far more players than the average fan knows about that is playing through a similar injury, a partial tear of this, a partial tear of that. My son had a partial tear of his hip labrum that he was diagnosed with last November. Surgery would have just about ended his hopes at the Olympic trials. So he opted to go with cortisone shots. He had one that lasted about 3 months. He had to get another one to get him through the Olympic trials, and he did it. You have to do whatever you have to do. The fact that it's not his throwing shoulder, I want to make one quick point on that. For anybody that's thrown a football with any velocity, and I don't mean this, okay? I mean you're winding up and you're throwing the football. There's a lot of torque with your hips. You use your legs, obviously, so the lower extremities also come into play. But don't think that because it's not in his throwing shoulder that there's still not extreme pain. Because when the process of throwing a football with the velocity required that he has to throw it, there's a lot of movement in that shoulder, and that's what hurts. It's just the sudden jarring of that shoulder. I'm guessing he's had a cortisone shot, and I'm guessing that will be enough to get him through this season. Whether or not he decides to have it surgically repaired in the offseason, that's a decision for him and the Browns. Fact of the matter is, until we're told otherwise, he's going to be out there. And I'm not greasing the skids for a lesser Baker Mayfield than what we've seen in the past. But I think it's crazy to assume that we're going to see the top-notch Baker Mayfield even with this kind of an injury.
Real quick, as the Browns got a tough one against the Chargers this weekend, got to go all the way out to the West Coast. Would you anticipate that the game plan would be altered a little bit? I mean, we saw the Browns, at times with the Vikings, heavy dose of the run, bootlegs, short passes, which is why I didn't understand why they were trying to throw it deep late in the game.
Right, it made no sense.
Yeah, but would you expect more of that
Absolutely.
At this point?
Sure. I mean, for starters, the Browns have all they want on Sunday with the Chargers. This is a very good football team. And I'm a little surprised that the spread is just, 1.5 points? Yeah. I'm surprised by that. I would have expected the Browns to be at least a 3-point underdog and maybe more. It's a West Coast game. That's never easy. The Chargers fan base in Los Angeles isn't exactly the most raucous in the NFL. I imagine you're going to hear some Browns fans there because we have fans everywhere. Yeah. But this is not a game that I expect the Browns to win. It just isn't. Would I change the game plan? Do I expect the Browns will change the game plan? Yeah, because the whole idea in football is to possess the football. How do you possess the football? Run. Yeah. So I would expect, 14, 15 play, 75-yard drives with a heavy dose of Chubb and Hunt, and the passing game to be very short, high percentage passes. That's their best chance. You also, with a guy like Bosa coming at Baker Mayfield, you don't want to risk that because you know he's going to get free. Right. I think everything's going to be quick drops, releases, a lot of handoffs, and take their chances. Yep.
Browns-Chargers Sunday with now this little extra subplot put in. Again, Baker Mayfield playing with a partially torn labrum. We've got a lot more coverage at WKYC.com. Jay, thanks for stopping by here for a quick chat about all this. You bet, Dino. All right, for Jay Crawford, I'm Dave DeNatale. Thanks for watching right here on WKYC.com.